Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us on a lovely sunny evening. Well, it is in York anyway. For our conversation with Robin and Laura, that is myself, and obviously that's Laura. Introduce ourselves in a second. So this webinar tonight is all around the results that we've received from our sporting context survey. Initially, we were a bit unsure whether to do tonight or not, because obviously it's not the most exciting of topics looking at insight and data, but we thought you guys have taken the time to fill in that survey, and I'm sure as you filled in that survey and other surveys like I have, you think, are people actually reading this, or what do they get from it? So we wanted to really persevere with it and make sure that what we do with it, and make sure it's worthwhile you doing it, and then hopefully you'll redo it in future years, and you'll see how the data that we get from this survey really drives our area of work, not just in workforce, but kind of wider across the organisation as well. So just to introduce myself, as I said, my name is Robin Lavin. I'm the Workforce Development Manager. I work across both North Yorkshire Sport and Active Humber. By workforce development, I'm talking about clubs, coaches, volunteers, and professional workforce. So that's anyone who gets paid for their role in sport and physical activity. Laura?
I'm Laura Young. I work for just North Yorkshire Sport. I head up their Satellite Club programme, which is basically funding deliverers to put on new activity for inactive teenagers, and part of my role within that is trying to influence our sector to become more sustainable, and so basically just more sustainable. So that's my role within the club development side.
Okay, thanks, Laura. Right, so what we're going to do tonight is we're going to go through a presentation. So we're going to show a number of slides. I'll bring the presentation up very shortly. And we're going to ask as many questions through or as we go along through the presentation as possible. Obviously, we're going through data, so sometimes it can be quite dry. And so we'd want you to ask questions as well. Don't wait for us to ask you questions. If you have a question about a particular bit of data, please do go ahead and ask away. And hopefully that'll make the session a lot more engaging. So, right, just sharing my screen now. Right, hopefully you can all see my screen, which is the presentation. And although I can now no longer see a chat box. I don't know if you can, Laura.
If you click on the chat, you can open it up as a separate window.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'm with you. Chat. Brilliant. Okay, thanks, Laura. Okay, so here we go. Can someone just confirm that they can see the presentation for me, just before we get going? Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Sarah. Okay, so as I mentioned, this is the data from our context survey. For those who aren't familiar on the context survey, I thought I'd just give you a little bit of history, a bit of an overview of it, why, what it is, why we started doing it. So we call it a context survey. It's a pretty horrible term, to be perfectly honest, but we didn't want it to just be about sports clubs, and we wanted it to be all encompassing. So anyone who delivers sport and physical activity, and this is the title we came up with, for want of a better title. So it's basically, as you hopefully know, it's a health check. So this tells us the areas that you're really doing well in, the areas that you need support in. So we can, like I said earlier, help direct our work to support you as best we can. This is the third sporting context survey that North Yorkshire have done. This is the first one that North Yorkshire and Active Humber have joined together, and this is Active Humber's second one. Patrick, you've raised your hand. I don't know if you've done that deliberately. If you could just join and type away in the chat box if you have any questions. And yeah, so this is hopefully allowing us to interact with more community organisations as well. So this we had 308 responses over with this context survey, which is brilliant, which is a good raise on both North Yorkshire's responses and Active Humbers as well. So that's really good. It was 2/3 North Yorkshire clubs and 1/3 Humber club that made this up, and the vast majority, 206 out of those 308 responses are from community sports clubs. So it's and there were a good range of sports as well that that made the survey up. So moving on to the next slide, Laura.
So what we found was that over half of the contexts reported a membership increase over the last 12 months. Only 10% have actually recorded a decrease in membership, and a third reported that their membership had stayed the same, which is shown on this graph here. If we move on to the next slide, we'll just go into a little bit more detail about what those results came back with. One of the main reasons clubs found that their membership increased was word of mouth, which, after having discussions with Robin and a few other members of the team, we thought really shows that delivering a really good service to your members and knowing exactly what it is that they want from you and delivering it is really, really important in terms of growing membership and keeping people coming back and spreading that word about the really good stuff that you do. Only 5% of the clubs increased their membership due to new facilities. So when we've spoken to clubs in the past, there is always a lot of chat around the fact that their facilities aren't big enough, they're not good enough, they're always wanting to improve their facilities. And actually, with only 5% of the clubs saying that their increase in membership was down to new facilities, just goes to show, actually, should we be spending so much time looking at our facilities in so much detail, when actually, if we look inward and look at how we're delivering to our customers, basically, we actually might see a much bigger increase. Similar thing with funding. Quite a low number of clubs actually said that their membership went up due to funding they've received. So again, quite a lot of clubs we hear are struggling with membership because they don't have enough funding. Whereas, do they really need to be spending all that time, effort, putting in applications for different funding pots if they could actually get a bigger payback with delivering the right session for their customers? What we have done is, and what we will do, is pull together case studies from clubs who have had quite a big bit of success in these areas, and be able to share that with you over the coming months. And we've also got online learning as well, which can support you in terms of delivering the right sessions to your customers as well. If we can move on to the next slide, Robin. So this slide is all around clubs that said that they either had decreasing membership or their membership stayed the same. Quite a lot said that they had a lack of coaches or volunteers. This has been mentioned most years, every year that North Yorkshire Sport has run it, and I think it was also raised in the Active Humber one last year as well. We've actually, on the back of previous year's context surveys, we have actually developed a online module all around sort of recruiting and retaining volunteers. So anyone who this is an issue for, I'd really recommend that you go onto our online learning hub, which is YH Learning, but we'll go into sort of where you can get support in greater detail later. Another thing that was mentioned was older members retiring. how can clubs utilize these people and keep them engaged in their clubs? Could this help plug any gaps that you have with your coaching and volunteering roles? If you think about these older members, they could have been involved in your club for years and years and years. And it's such a shame to lose that sort of knowledge base, and also for them to lose that contact with you as well. Could they be put into different roles? So could they be mentoring other coaches? Could they, if they're from a coaching point of view, could they helping out in volunteering roles? Could they greet new members? There's all sorts of really small roles you could offer them as a way to keep them engaged in your club. Again, like I mentioned before about the funding, there is funding out there to help you increase your membership. So like I mentioned earlier, I run Satellite Club programme on behalf of North Yorkshire Sport, and that is about allocating funding to deliver to inactive teenagers, and we specifically look at women and girls, young people in deprived areas. So we can support clubs to engage those hard to reach customers without having to really put themselves at any financial risk. Another thing that was mentioned was junior members moving on. I'm actually going to put this as a question out to you guys. We weren't sure if this is young people moving on due to going to university and relocating, whether it's moving on to a new sport, or whether it's leaving sport and physical activity altogether. Has anyone got any sort of personal experience of any young people that have left your clubs? We'd be really interested to hear from you in the chat box now, if that's okay.
While you're typing away, just thought I'd mention, Laura mentioned that she runs satellite clubs at North Yorkshire Sport. Just to let you know that that same programme is available at Active Humber, that is led by one of my colleagues, Nicola, and all that information is on both North Yorkshire and Active Humber websites. Before university age, leaving sport 15, 16. Okay, so Steve mentions before university age, so people leaving sport at around 15, 16, 17 is a big problem for them. Obviously that has a bit of an issue through to their senior team. So kind of that exam period that we know. Moving away to uni, don't tend to come back due to job market and isolation. Yeah, okay, so that's based around the coast, if anyone has any clubs around the coast. So Mark's reiterating Steve's earlier point when we're looking at exams and studies.
One thing I would say about both Steve and Mark's comments is, are there ways where you could almost sort of turn that on its head? So in terms of pressure from studies and work and all the other pressures that come with that age, could you potentially even design a session or a section of your club which isn't around sort of adding further pressure to that? So if it's a team sport, could you run a session where it's not imperative that they turn up every week? They don't need to commit to be able to play in a team every weekend. It actually could be about people being really interested in that sport, getting together, meeting up and using it as a socialization as well as a keeping fit type session. You could almost have it as like a bit of a stress buster, so helping and supporting them through those exam periods by using physical activity to combat stress and other pressures like that. I don't know if any of the clubs or anyone on has got any thoughts on that point of view, whether you think that would work.
We've got a video in a couple of slides time as well that'll kind of really show you the different stages throughout a young person's life and all the things that can get in the way with exams and partners and potentially drinking and things like that when you start getting to those ages. So we'll kind of look at that a bit more in depth in a moment.
Have you heard of the holding on scheme, Robin?
No, I haven't.
I haven't either. I suppose it's just a participant retention scheme. Is that right, Mark?
One scheme that the RFU did used to have was all around when they went off to university and kind of pairing them up with a light club in their new area.
Yeah. See, things like that can be really helpful as well. So if you do have young people going off to uni, could you get in contact with a club over there to support them transition from one club to another? Moving obviously to a new area can be really scary, can be really overwhelming, and just turning up at a club where everyone else seems to know each other can be really terrifying. So if you have junior members that are looking to move into different areas, could you support that journey for them to enable them to stay active and keep active while they're over there? And then if they do move back to the area, obviously if they're not from Scarborough, if they do move back into the area, will they then re-engage back into your club, and you therefore won't have lost a member? Got a comment from Steve.
Probably don't do enough. Yeah. So Steve's just saying that it's all kind of mainly around competition, and there's not necessarily that wider support for different types or people's different motivations for attending those sessions. But as I say, we'll come on to that and look into that in a little bit more detail shortly.
Yeah.
Are you finished on that slide?
Yes.
Laura? Okay, so the next couple of slides are all around forecasting growth, or forecasting for the next 12 months. And it's worthwhile noting that this was pre-COVID-19. So for those of you, if you have filled in this survey, that's great. There is a mini sister version currently live at the moment for the next week or so. And it's only 5 questions long, so it shouldn't take long. And it's just mainly around kind of updating this information now that we obviously are aware and living the pandemic as we are. So I did miss out a graph that basically said the forecasted membership changes are a 59% rise, 36% will stay the same, and 5% see a membership decrease. So comparing that to the last year's actual growth or staying the same, that's slightly more positive, which is good that people have been more positive. And some of these reasons for people forecasting growth is really good. Marketing and recruitment planned. So, I mean, you'll see some of the things that Laura's already said and talked about. You'll see a lot of common themes throughout the whole of this presentation to do with marketing, workforce, making sure we've got enough coaches or enough volunteers, targeting new demographics and new links with schools and things like that. So yeah, we'll see some good common themes. So again, something that Laura mentioned, only 6% are forecasting growth due to improved facilities. So over 300 people have filled this in survey, and only 6%. That's not a huge rise, and that is what the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th, 6th. That's the 6th most highly chosen answer on why people are forecasting growth, whereas it's more the standard ones of marketing, targeting newer demographic, high demand, waiting lists. And these are the things that we're looking at supporting you with to help grow and help your club be more sustainable. So already during this pandemic, we've delivered a number of surveys. One of them has been on funding, but others have been on how to engage with women and girls. We've done ones on things like mental health. We've got other ones organised on marketing. So in 2 weeks' time, we have a Club Matters workshop on how to develop a marketing strategy. That is actually fully booked, but there is a waiting list. So if you do want to attend that, let me know. And if someone drops out, I can either put you on that one, or if not, we can organise another one if there is demand. So moving on to the next one. And reasons for membership forecasted to stay the same, and reasons for decrease. Again, let's look at the decrease first. There's older members retiring, young people have other interests and people moving away, things we've just talked about. And then for looking at staying the same, lack of volunteers, lack of coaches. As Laura mentioned, can we harness those older members retiring back into the club and to do it into a different role? So a lot of older members retire because their body might not work as well as it used to, but they still want to be around the atmosphere, they want to be around the club. So can you take that motivation and that passion for that sport or for that club back into another role? Can they become a coach, or can they become a volunteer, just helping the club become more sustainable? Is there a committee role, or are they finance in their day job? Can they become the treasurer? Very easy to engage those guys. And then people moving away, members leaving for university. There's a few different common themes that we are already seeing repeating. So we've got a quick video here that UK Coaching have developed, and it looks at the just the life cycle of a young person as they're growing old, like we mentioned before, and the different things they might be engaged with. So we'll just click play. Hopefully the Wi-Fi will be okay for us. Great. Okay, so we saw a number of different things in that video there. I'll just pause it before it goes on to the next one. So does anyone within their club ask members why they leave? Just let us know in the chat box. A lot of reasons, a lot of times it can be for a number of different reasons, from exam pressures. We've already kind of seen that from a few different people within the chat box there. It can be, maybe their motivations have changed and they want something different out of their sessions. They might not want something as competitive. They could be going through puberty. They might just be a little bit more body conscious. can we take all those different things into account and deliver our session differently? So if we have that open dialogue with our members and find out why they're there, and like I say, keep on asking that question, hopefully we'll be able to have better retention. And sometimes, even doing those things, we may not stop them from leaving, but as long as we know that as long as they know that it's okay for them to come back to that club whenever they've gone through that period, whatever it is. There's some really good examples in that for exams, for example, just sending them a message. Obviously, send it to all the group if it's an age group, saying good luck to everyone. We'll see you back in a few weeks where we're going to have a blowout session where we're going to have some music and have more of a party kind of themed or something like that. So does anyone have that dialogue with their participants? I'm taking that as a no. Okay, and some of the things that we saw before on at my team, not a club level. Okay, yeah. So some of the things we talked about before, members retiring and stuff. So do we have a different offer for them as well as kind of asking them to go into volunteering or coaching within the club? Do we have a different offer for them? So if they play rugby, they might not be able to take the contact anymore, but can they play touch rugby? Can they play walking netball or walking football, or just give them a different offer? Really, like I say, their motivations or their reasons for leaving might not be because they hate the sport now, or they don't want to play anymore. Maybe it's just their body can't keep up with the pace of the game anymore. Okay, so moving on.
Okay, so this is one of the main questions we ask our clubs, is all around their financial sustainability. As you can see from the graph, 78% stated that they are sustainable, and quite a lot of this has come from, they've said, from careful financial management and fees they've collected from membership were the most cited reasons for this, rather than those reliant on funding and sponsorship. As we've mentioned before, the ones that seem to, from the answers that we've seen, clubs that are sort of reliant on funding and sponsorship aren't sort of saying that they are financially sustainable. And are there ways where you can actually put more time and effort into financial management and looking after your members properly? There's quite a lot of resources on the Club Matters website that go through all different structures that your club can set up as, in terms of cask, companies limited by guarantee, charities, and actually they go through what the pros and cons of each of those setups might be, including how they might work for your club. They also do have quite a lot of fundraising ideas and things like that on that website. Obviously, at the end of this presentation, we can direct you to all the resources we mentioned. But it's just to sort of highlight that actually our clubs across both areas that are saying they're financially sustainable aren't reliant or aren't chasing funding and things like that to keep themselves going. They might be potentially looking at funding to maybe increase their membership. So the likes of clubs who might apply to satellite clubs are looking to expand their offer. They're looking to attract new participants rather than retaining the ones they already have. So yeah, it's just to keep that in mind again. And as I mentioned, we can send you all the resources and links to Club Matters as well.
Yeah, so some of those things that Laura just mentioned around different club structures, We'll see on a later slide all the different kind of workshops that have been requested, and because they've been requested, that's something that we are then gonna look to organise. So things like club structures and other club matters workshops. But yeah, we'll be sending an email out tomorrow with all the information on where you can go for further learning and different things that we're going to mention tonight. Okay, so just looking at the future then. So over the next 12 months, these are the different things that different clubs want to do. So increase number of participants and members. Funnily enough, starting Zoom sessions isn't on there, but I'm sure if we asked that question now, it would be. Attracting more volunteers. Increase funding or sponsorship is up there, although that hasn't been on the other ones. So you can see there's a bit of a disparity between some of the different questions. Improving facilities is up there as well. Upgrading equipment, things like that. So something that Laura's already mentioned is our online learning facility. So I thought I'd just kind of take this opportunity to delve into that a little bit more. So just over a year ago, again, from the data that we've collated in our context surveys, we saw quite a lot of clubs saying that they want to attend training, but they can't for a variety of reasons. They've got busy work lives, they've got busy home lives, they don't have time to go on a 3-hour course on a weekend. They don't have the money, or they're unwilling to part with the money to attend training that they're not sure if it's any good or not. So, and we also noticed as well that quite a lot of our workshops that we were organising that have been requested were getting cancelled just due to low bookings. You know, especially when we're looking at an area as big as North Yorkshire and the Humber, there's lots of rural isolation. You know, so when we're talking about delivering a workshop in Withensea or in Rydale, you know, we're talking about small clusters of people, and it's just not financially sustainable to deliver a workshop to those areas. So what we did is we got some extra funding from Sport England through their innovation pot, and we developed our own learning community, which is the Yorkshire and Humber Learning Community, which you can find at yhlearning.co.uk. Laura, if you could just type that, into the box while I'm kind of just talking through that, that'd be great. Thank you. So Yorkshire and Humber Learning Community, and what we're doing with that is we're looking and we're reading all this data, and you know, where there are common themes and there are a high prevalence of different clubs asking for the same things, we're trying to increase learning within those areas. Now, it's not the be all and end all. It's not, you know, it's not going to give you loads of depth of information on those subjects. It's all around bite-sized learning. So if you're unsure whether you want to spend that £30, that £40 to go and deliver, you know, or to go and attend that further learning, that further training, you can go onto here. You can try it. They're up to an hour, from 20 minutes to an hour. It's completely free. You can just go and give it a go. All the case studies and all the different examples that we give on there are from the Yorkshire and Humber area. So, you know, quite often I've seen a lot of training and it's all around case studies from clubs in London, and that it's not relatable to our area. So that's one of the main bits of feedback that we found from other learning wider. So like I say, we've developed our own learning platform. Last week we have launched our latest module on using volunteers to strengthen your club. So that's on there. We've also got other modules on there, from GDPR to using Facebook to promote your sessions, to raising the issue of healthy weight, to engaging women and girls. There's lots of different things on there, and there's lots of other things that we are going on to develop further. I'll mention a few different workshops later on. So that's some of the things that we're doing. Things like this webinar series, A Conversation With. We're looking to keep people talking, to keep people engaged, to keep people learning throughout this period. So, we're using our time proactively throughout lockdown. And as things start to release, hopefully we can enter back to our normal club environment better skilled. One thing I'll mention on here, we talk about mentoring. We do cover that in a slide a bit later on, and that is something that North Yorkshire ran a webinar on a few weeks ago now, and there was a little bit of interest there from the Humber clubs. So tonight we have about a 50-50 split actually between North Yorkshire clubs and Humber clubs, which is really good and really positive. So just to kind of pose that question, if we were to develop a mentoring scheme within the Humber area, is that something that you'd be interested in? Just let us know in the chat box there, because that is something that we can quite easily develop. Yeah, Steve, straight away, I'm very keen. That's great to know, Steve, and we'll keep on kind of answering or trying to develop things like that. Lisa's keen as well. I mean, to be honest, that's something that we could probably start quite quickly, because with the current situation, clubs are talking over Skype and things like that, and obviously Zoom. So brilliant, that's good to know. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next slide.
So this slide is just showing the number of, percentage of clubs that actually access support from either North Yorkshire Sport or Active Humber over the past 12 months. The support that they have accessed differs quite a lot. So some of them will have access funding, some of them have had support to help set up a club or a new arm of their club or a new activity or service. Some of these clubs will have completed training or gone through some sort of development with us. Other clubs have utilised insight, so information that we have got like this that shows clubs within the area are behaving in certain ways can then actually be used to submit into funding bids and things like that. Or it can actually be used, other insight we have can actually be used to strategically sort of drop activity into certain locations. Some clubs have had some marketing support from us. I've had support in terms of their strategic planning, had support in improving their facilities, or they've achieved some sort of accreditation, or they've been linked into new networks. So 55% of those clubs that have accessed any form of support from us, so it could even just be from a small conversation about any one of those things, have said that working with us has actually enabled them to do something quicker or more effectively than they would have otherwise been able to do. So if you are a club that is looking for help, please just reach out to us, both North Yorkshire Sport and Active Humber. If we can't help you, we should be able to find someone who can. So please just bear that in mind. Don't struggle along on your own when you don't need to, even if it's putting you in contact with maybe another club in your area or close by that have done something similar that you can work with, or they can help you, and we will do what we can to support you and to help you.
Okay, moving on to the next one. So here we dive deep into the world of workforce, and we're looking at whether clubs say they have sufficient coaches, sufficient volunteers. Quite a busy slide there, so I do apologise. There's lots of facts and figures on there, but I thought it'd be best to display all that information together, because looking at these figures, we've got 48% of clubs saying they don't have enough coaches, and we've got 58% of clubs saying that they don't have sufficient amount of volunteers. And going back to the things we talked about earlier on, kind of we're looking at our membership levels going down because people are retiring again. why can't we use those people, or are we asking those people even if they want to, get involved within the club environment with it, as a volunteer or as a coach, and looking at some of these barriers here. So recruitment, lack of volunteers, that's number one. Referring back to Yorkshire and Humber Learning Community again, our latest module that we delivered last week, or launched last week, I should say, and was all around kind of recruiting, nurturing, and retaining your own volunteers in your own environment. So please do go to Yorkshire and Humber Learning Community and have a look at that, and look at the different resources. So what we've done within that is, we've looked at different clubs and different contexts who look after their volunteers really well, and how they support them. We talk about lack of qualified coaches. A lot of times we get requests for people wanting us to advertise for, a level 2 football coach or a 3rd dan karate coach, when it's actually just not needed. And I think sometimes we need to be a little bit more realistic about our aspirations, or on who we're trying to engage with. How many times are we going to advertise for a 3rd dan karate coach, and we'll have a few people put their hand up and say, yeah, I'm that, I can come and deliver your session. Unless someone relocates, I think you'll be very lucky to get something like that. So one of the other modules that we're looking to develop at the moment is around being a community activator. Especially if you're not going to be leading those sessions, can you attend, an hour's online training, or something that's not so structured, so you can get a lot of engagement knowledge and engagement practice without having to give up your weekend, without having to give up over £100 or whatever it is to go and attend a UKCC course. There are plenty of other ways that you can develop as a coach, or an activator, or a leader, without kind of parting with that cash, without parting with that time, and trying to kind of juggle things around your busy home, work lives, and your club life as well. A lot of our coaches and volunteers, yes, they do love the sport, but there's family and there's other things going on in their lives as well. So we need to be respectful of that. And if we are respectful of that, and we talk to our workforce around their motivations for being a workforce, and just like our participants, if we look after our workforce, they'll keep within the club environment for a lot longer. Some of the things here that I've just mentioned: the costs of training, the time of training, barriers to having a sufficient workforce is the growth of the club session. It's a great problem to have, I guess. But again, kind of refer back to the learning which we've developed on kind of what you've been saying. Okay, so we'll move on to the next slide there. Okay, so this is obviously, as it says, how people want to access the support, which, the top thing is, you can see there 49% of people want to access face-to-face workshops, which again is a bit contradicting to some of the other information that we've seen, or some of the other information we have gathered. So like I've mentioned earlier, a lot of the workshops which we have organised, we've had to cancel due to low numbers. If the people that are on the Zoom webinar tonight actually were the ones filling in the survey, can I just ask the question whether you actually consulted with your workforce before filling it in, and whether these were the the types of support, or how they would want to access the support going on, because that'd be really interesting. So good that 18% of clubs. So yes, that's okay. 18% are kind of open to online learning or webinars. Although again, at the moment, obviously, we're engaging new people into webinars that we're running. And I bet if we ran a webinar like this, or a webinar like how to engage women and girls within your sessions 4 months ago, I bet we wouldn't have been able to run it, or only had 1 or 2 people attend. So it'd be really interesting to see how this maybe changes to. I'm not sure we've asked this question within the COVID-19 context survey, but going on next year, hopefully people will be a lot more open to online workshops and online webinars and different methods of learning. So, I mean, we ask ourselves the question: what can you get from an online workshop, or what can't you get from an online workshop or webinar that you can't get in a face-to-face? Obviously, engagement with other clubs or coaches or volunteers or from different club environments is a lot easier in a face-to-face environment. But we do have those added issues of the amount of time that it takes, the cost of attending. So obviously tonight we're looking at around about an hour for tonight's webinar. But if we were to do this on face to face, that would be up to 3 hours at least for people to attend. So there are a lot of pros, even though that might be the number one way people would like to attend training. And again, 9% of people saying they'd like to access a mentor. Laura, sorry, I've not asked you kind of previously, but can you just go into the different types of support a mentor can give, and also some of the barriers that we're trying to break down with people accessing mentors, even though that they've already said that they'd like support from a mentor?
So the mentor service that we offer is completely free. We have funding from different sources to kind of support the clubs in the area. We have a bank of mentors, all of whom have got different skills and specialities. So there's some who have got a marketing background, some who've got a business planning background, others who have come through more of a sporting background, but they actually have quite a lot of knowledge in terms of setting up clubs, different club structures. We've got mentors in there that have actually got a youth justice or a youth work background, who have supported some of our clubs engage those really difficult, sort of hard to reach young people. So we can, with our mentors, can support a wide variety of the clubs. We've got clubs that have been brand new that have had support. We've had clubs that have been in existence for over 70 years. And every single club that has engaged has seen a remarkable difference in the way they ran their club prior to having a mentor and how they run it now. It's not about the mentor. I think the issue that we haven't had a huge demand for it, which has baffled us, because it's free. It's a free service. It's all about just helping your club to improve, become more sustainable, and move it in the direction that you guys want your club to move in. This isn't about a mentor coming in and telling people that they're running their club wrong or they need to run their clubs in certain ways. Our mentors sit down and listen to what the priorities of that particular club are and support that club to actually find their own way there. They don't tell them what to do. They don't tell them what direction to take. They're more of a sounding board. If you go onto the North Yorkshire Sport website, we've actually got a page dedicated to our mentors. It kind of goes into some of their background, but actually we've got a few case studies on there as well, video case studies that are only, I think the longest video on there is 7 minutes or something like that, and there's other short snippets and quotes from clubs. So yeah, that's kind of a whirlwind tour of our mentors.
Thanks, Laura. Yeah, I mean, it started off as a mentoring program that was all around coaching, and it soon developed into marketing and all those different areas that Laura mentioned. And we did kind of start out kind of looking for sports specialists, but then we realized there's no point. Marketing's marketing, or business development is business development. They don't always have that knowledge of that particular sport. Sometimes they do, but sometimes they don't. But a lot of the time it's just not necessary. But they do have the knowledge of. Obviously, we pair mentors up with the areas of that club is saying that they're struggling with. So.
Yeah, and as well as we do take in geographic areas as well, but obviously at the moment that's kind of taken away from it. and obviously all meetings between men's clubs are happening sort of online. Matt Hewison has said, I'm an FA mentor and clubs are so reluctant to engage as they think you're going to criticise everything they do rather than just support development. And I think we've probably had the same experience, Matt, in that I think clubs are reluctant to kind of maybe lay themselves bare and maybe open themselves up to criticism, but that isn't what our mentors are there to do. They're meant to be really supportive, and if they're not, if you wanted a mentor and applied for one and you just felt like you didn't click with the mentor we paired you with, then again, that really isn't an issue. Not everyone gets on with everyone, and we won't hold that against the club or the mentor. We will just look to maybe pair you with someone new who you might get on better with. So yeah, it's not about them coming in to criticise, tell you how to do it better. It's them supporting you to deliver your club the way you want it.
Yeah, and that's what we try and really get across in our case studies that we've developed, and you'll see that in those videos. And as I say, the interest seems there from the Humber club, so that is definitely something that we are going to look to develop across the Humber. Okie dokie. Laura, is this one?
Marketing demographics. Sorry, I'm just looking through my notes. Oh, yeah. Have we skipped one? No.
No.
Okay.
We talked a lot about all the things that you mentioned on this one anyway, to be fair.
Yeah, so one of the questions we asked our clubs is what demographics they would sort of like to target to increase their membership. Children, young people, women and girls were the most actively target groups mentioned within this. Just over a third said they wouldn't like to target any additional demographic groups. I think between 23 and 32% of contacts would like to target each of the other demographics, so not the ones mentioned just now. The majority of clubs would like to receive support for them to do this, and they'd like it face-to-face. And so it's like Robin mentioned before, we have listened to clubs in the past to put on face-to-face training and then had to cancel. So one of the questions we would really like to put out to you guys, and we want you to be really honest, really frank, is what face-to-face training would sort of help you to attract those new participants. So if you were looking to start a junior section or a particular session targeting young people who may be engaging in antisocial behaviour, or you might be trying to look at a women and girls session, what training or what support face-to-face would you think would be benefit? Or do you think maybe people have clicked face-to-face training because that might have been what they've been more familiar with in the past, like all coaching courses are face-to-face, your safeguarding is face-to-face, your first aid is face-to-face? Is it that we are just so used to engaging in CPD, in training courses face-to-face, and maybe the thought of doing it via online hasn't really occurred to them, or not really been something that you've been comfortable with? Be really interested to hear your views on this one.
And this is why we do things like the sport and context survey, because quite a lot of the time we have our own ideas and our own opinion on why things are like that, why people do or why they don't attend things. But you know, this is why we do surveys like this, so that it can really direct our work, so we know that what we're doing is exactly what's needed.
I'm just going to post the link to our mentor page on the chat box for anyone who's interested in looking at that and looking at the videos.
So Steve's had a comment there about familiarity of attending face-to-face training.
Yeah, I do wonder if with the context survey we've got out at the moment, whether we'll see like a big change in how clubs might want to access support. Maybe people having been forced to be online a lot more, including chatting to their families and friends, doing quizzes online, whether that then follows through to sort of how they develop themselves for their club.
Yeah, I agree with Lisa's comment that people are now probably more confident to access training online because we've
Yeah,
been kind of forced into it. I know some of the previous webinars we've done, say around engaging women and girls, where we've had a panel of a few different experts from different settings. We had someone from England Netball and someone from Street Games. That was really well received, and I had some really positive comments and lots of bits that people could take away. So if you did miss those webinars, we've recorded them all, and they're all hosted within our club support sections on the Active Humber or North Yorkshire Sport website, respectively.
I'll find the clubs, the North Yorkshire one, Robin, and put that link on there if you want to put the.
I'll send all these links out tomorrow anyway in an
Yeah.
email. Okay, so while Laura's doing that,
I was just going to ask if anyone wants to just put in the chat box just around what they think we could offer like slightly differently. So looking at the support that clubs have said would help them, so face-to-face training, funding, mentoring, networking, online training, toolkits and resources. Is there anything outside of that that you think would be really useful to your club, or is there anything in that list there that you'd like more information on, or is there any more detail that you'd like from us?
nothing. I'll tell you what. While people are typing, we'll move on to the next slide. It's the penultimate slide.
Yeah.
You might be glad to know. So these are all the different types of training that people have requested. So there's a good mix in here. So things like the business planning, the leadership, the club leadership, club structures, marketing, volunteer experience, and participant experience are all Club Matters workshops. So we are planning on arranging those. Like I said before, we've already arranged the marketing one, and that's fully booked. But like I said, there is a waiting list, and we can organise another one if the if the demand is there. But something which I thought very interesting throughout this whole webinar, the key themes are that people are leaving their clubs and people don't have enough volunteers. But if you look at the list of different types of training that people want us to put on, volunteer experience and participant experience is right down near the bottom. I mean, okay, people have only kind of mentioned one choice, but I wonder, or if anyone could perhaps say, if you did complete this survey, are they on your list, or are they, why are they further down that list than other things like business planning or club structures or club leadership? So while you're kind of typing away in the box there, I'll just kind of mention, so all those Club Matters workshops that I've just mentioned, we are looking to organise because you've told us that's what you need. As well as things like this, we are looking to develop and organise new webinars, conversations, where we'll bring in different experts in the field, like I just mentioned, and like the ones we've already been doing. We are developing new online modules for our online learning community, Yorkshire and Humber Learning. Things like activator training or how to engage different targeted demographics. We've just launched our volunteer module, which is getting some real good traction. So, I mean, we talked about, or someone just mentioned about getting more familiar with online learning because our hand's been forced because of this. So the Yorkshire and Humber Learning Community, I think it's got about 10 or 12 now, different modules on there. So from GDPR, all those things I've already mentioned. The site, although it has been live for over half a year, we kind of only really launched it and pushed it at the beginning of April, and since that time we've had over 950 accounts made and over 2,000 enrollments into courses, which is pretty big. It's something that would never have thought that would get that beforehand. So our information does show that online learning is becoming a lot more accepted. So do clubs value volunteers enough, Matt? That is something that we go into on the module. How often do we say thank you to our volunteers? How often do we send them a Christmas card to say thanks for all the work that you've done throughout the year? When we've been delivering campaigns on engaging volunteers, and we sent them a certificate saying, thanks for being fantastic, or thanks for being great, our feedback is, just a certificate, something as small as that, it's made their day, it's made them feel valued, and that will, help people maintain or keep them within their clubs, let them know that they're not just over there on their own, that they're part of something bigger. Especially when a lot of volunteers volunteer for different reasons. They may be new to an area and they just don't know anyone, so they're looking to find more people. They're looking to maybe learn new skills. It could be the reason they get out of bed in the morning if they've got different mental health issues. People volunteer for loads of different issues, for loads of different reasons, sorry. So we just need to find out why they are. So yeah, have a look at our volunteering module which we've developed, and hopefully you'll get some more information there. Yeah, mental health awareness is a surprising figure. Yeah, I thought that too, Matt, as well, because a lot of our research as well has showed us that that is higher. But anyway, there we go. Okay, so that is all the different training which we have already developed or already delivered, which is recorded on our website. The things that we are looking to deliver in the future. So during lockdown, we're delivering training or organising training every other week, and we are looking to continue this throughout lockdown and then afterwards. So even after lockdown is finished, we may not do it every other week, but it is definitely something that we are going to carry on doing on Learning Online, because we and the people who have attended so far have really seen the value of it. So that is the kind of the information which we've received so far. And that brings us to the end of our webinar. So thank you for your time. We're going to hang around just for a few minutes. So if anyone has any questions, or if anyone has any other ideas for modules or webinars, conversations that you want us to look at organising and we haven't spoke about it, please do let us know. And if the demand is there, we'll do it. We're here to support you, and if this is what you're saying that you need help with, then that's what we'll do.